I'm going to start here with Derek Carr visiting the New Orleans Saints. I think if you listen to this show, there's a percentage of our audience that listens a significant portion of the show every day. There's probably a larger percentage of the audience that just catches us when they have the opportunity. If you're one of the people that listens to the majority of the show, or you catch us on demand, you've heard my thoughts on Derek Carr and the Saints and what that might look like and my feelings on it. But now it feels like it's a real possibility. You realize Derek Carr's visiting the Saints. The reports are that there's some interest, and you understand that if Derek Carr is visiting New Orleans, the Saints and Raiders have already agreed to the compensation that would send Derek Carr to the Saints. It's now up to Derek Carr whether or not it's a place he wants to go. He's obviously got that no-trade clause. So, there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. But as I work through them, it continues to push me one direction. So let's work through it here. Saints and Derek Carr. Carr is owed about $40 million next year. The Raiders have to have him off of their roster by the 15th of February. That means they've got until next Wednesday to deal with this. Same exact situation the Falcons were up against last year with Matt Ryan. And they ended up at the 11th hour dealing him to the Colts for a third-round pick, and they ate $40 million of dead money. If the Raiders don't do anything by the 15th, they're going to have to cut him. They're going to get nothing for him. They've decided they're moving on. He's not coming back. You saw the interview at the Pro Bowl. You understand the situation. Derek Carr not returning to Vegas. They're either going to trade him and get something of value or cut him, which means their leverage is minimal. What you are doing when you trade with the Raiders is basically eliminating the competition that may exist for a negotiation with Derek Carr, because I don't think anybody is paying him $40 million next year. The Saints right now are $60 million over the cap for next year. So some quick back-of-the-napkin math. If you're $60 million over the cap and you sign a quarterback that's going to make $40, that's $100 million over the signing cap. Of course, that's not exactly how that would work. If the Saints added Derek Carr, they would immediately get to work on his contract and renegotiate the entire thing. But that's something that is doable. The Saints have done it time and time again. You understand there's some familiarity with Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen drafted Derek Carr but was fired early in Derek's second year in Oakland. This whole scenario, as I look at it, is about compensation. What do the Saints have to give up to get him, and what does the contract looks like when he gets to New Orleans? Those are the variables. The player is not. Derek Carr is what he is. He is a firmly middle-of-the-road quarterback. He is not Pat Mahomes or Joe Burrow. He is not Josh Allen. He's also not Sam Darnold. You get it. He's right in the middle of the league. That's not going to change. You're not going to sign him and he becomes atrocious. You're not going to sign him and he becomes a first-team All-Pro. The only variables here are the compensation, and that's what makes this entire discussion. What do you give up and what are you paying him? If you're telling me that with your organization that's $60 million over the cap right now, that you're going to bring him in and renegotiate and pay him $30 million, and you're going to give up a second-round pick, that's unacceptable. You start to talk about a third-round pick, I feel a little better about it. Let me see what the renegotiation of the contract looks like. I'm assuming Derek Carr is not in a huge hurry to run to New Orleans to have his compensation slashed. He's signed a deal. He's entitled to it by the NFL. You know what? A team that's right now $60 million over the cap, not necessarily in the best spot to do that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and suggest to you that I know what the heck Kai Harley and Mickey Loomis and those guys do with the books when I'm not looking, or nobody. I don't know exactly how all that works. deferred payments, roster bonuses. I understand the buzzwords, the terminology. As far as exactly what this would look like and coming up with some accounting wizardry that would make this all equal out, you're not going to get that from me on this show. But I know what draft picks are, and I know what the state of the Saints roster is. You start talking about fifth-round pick, okay, we're moving in the right direction. And then I got to see what the money looks like from a contract perspective. Does Derek Carr taking snaps for the Saints make them better next year? I would say yes. I would say it does. Does Derek Carr on the books for a massive amount of money in his 33, 34, 35 seasons with the state of their salary cap and roster right now work for this franchise? In my eyes, it does not. Here's what I see when I look at the Saints. And this is what happens when you go through a season like the one the Saints just went through, which we haven't seen in a long time. We've consistently looked at the Saints for well over a decade as a team that's pretty close, that should very much compete for the division, can very much make a run at the Super Bowl, and may, if things break right, be able to win a championship. That's the way we have looked at the Saints for over a decade. We don't look at them like that anymore because of where their salary cap is, what their record was. Here's what I see when I look at the Saints. I see a team with a leaky run defense, 20th in the league. I see a team with no pass rush whatsoever. They cannot, with their front four, rush the passer at all. The linebackers got all the sacks. I see a team with Demario Davis that's aging. I see a team with Caden Ellis, who's a free agent that they'd like to bring back. That costs money. I see an aging Tyrann Mathieu that's got 2 years left on his contract that, quite frankly, was not awesome this past year. I see, on the other side of the ball, where the quarterback plays, what you thought were your top two targets entering last year, probably moving on. Mike Thomas, I don't think he's coming back. Jarvis Landry, he's not coming back. I got an undersized tight end that's really playing out of position in Juwan Johnson. I got questions with Andrews P's future and what the offensive line looks like. I got a bunch of, well, I shouldn't say a bunch of money. I have money and a significant investment in Trevor Penning, who hasn't really played. I got holes all over the place. And adding a middle-of-the-road NFL quarterback for a significant amount of money and giving up a draft pick? I don't see it. I was a little bit more on board with trying to go get Deshaun Watson. We're talking on the field. Younger, more productive. If we were talking about someone with the accomplishments of a Mahomes or Burrow or something, I know those guys don't come on the market, but you get what I'm saying. This is Derek Carr. This is not a guy that changes franchises. His franchise has stunk for 10 years. But this is the Saints' MO. This is in their DNA. And it makes all the sense in the world with Breeze and Peyton. It makes very little with Allen and Carr. You want to give up 2 picks to move up 8 spots in the first round to go get your guy when you've got Breeze and Peyton and you just went 12-4 in a 16-game schedule? Okay. Maybe that's your piece. Maybe he makes the play in the divisional round that gets you to the NFC Championship. Maybe that's the hole you're missing. This doesn't look like that to me. And it's enticing to want to upgrade the quarterback position when you've got Jameis Winston, who they've quit on, and Andy Dalton, who's well past his prime and pretty vanilla. But what does it mean to the rest of the roster? And if I can't get pass rushers, whether I got to pay him in free agency or use an early draft pick on him, if I can't get anybody in the interior of the defensive line to help them stop the run, if I can't find somebody to complement Alvin Kamara in the backfield where they've been playing musical chairs back there, who's next to Olave? Just Shaheed? Who's playing next to Demario Davis? Am I going to let Caden Ellis walk? Werner looks pretty good. Do I need to think about Tyrann Mathieu's replacement? I can't do all that stuff if I'm dumping $30 million a year into Derek Carr? And again, I don't know what the money's going to look like. That'll be the next segment of this show if and when Derek Carr agrees to terms with the Saints and we find out however many weeks, days later, what the compensation looks like. Maybe I changed my tune. I don't have that right now. I've got just speculation to work off of. And to me, way too many holes on a bad football team from last year for me to push a bunch of chips in for Derek Carr. And it's an odd conversation to have in the front office, and I'm certain that it doesn't go exactly like this, but if you were going to draw it as a cartoon in the paper, you've got Mickey Loomis going, we may need to take a step back here and maybe address some things with a bunch of draft picks and cutting some salary here and there, and maybe we'll be pretty good. I think in the 24 season we might be able to push off the dock. And then you've got Dennis Allen over there tapping his foot on the desk. We got to go now. I don't want to get fired. It's two totally different thought processes. In my opinion, one of them is more correct than the other, but you never know which one's going to win out. I don't get it if the compensation is significant. But we'll just have to find out. It appears, though, that this is very, very real. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Hunt Palmer Show on YouTube. If you don't mind, throw us a like right below and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.